We're at the Mixed Patreon here at GDC in San Francisco, catching up on a game called Elsinore. Give us the quick pitch. What kind of game is this?
Elsinore is a time-looping Shakespearean tragedy. The basic idea is the shorter version of that is it's Groundhog Day Hamlet. You play as Ophelia. Ophelia's, living through the events of Hamlet. She's like, guys, stop killing each other. Everyone's dying over and over again. And you're basically trying to learn, by learning new things about the way the play plays out and telling people these things, you influence the way they act. Unfortunately, everyone in Hamlet is so determined to kill each other that a lot of the things that you'll do will result in other horrible, tragic deaths. But then you learn more things, and you're able to influence the story more dramatically. So it's the cycle of tragedy and learning and discovery is the core idea.
So is the objective to sort of stop all the killing, or?
That is your objective. Whether or not you can succeed is, it's up to you to find out, right? Like, it's that you can definitely get outcomes that are better for certain people and worse for other people, and it's a question of, like, who do you care about at that point? Like, which of these feels better to you? And one of the big things that we were trying to tackle is this idea that, when you play a game, you want to win it, but, like, Shakespeare's a tragedy, right? Like, it's this idea, the idea that, like, there's a great outcome is kind of like, yeah, great job, you saved everyone. You just undermined everything about Hamlet. So we're going for something that, we want it to be emotionally fulfilling, but, maybe there's not a true ending like there is in Castlevania where, like, oh, look, now everything's perfect, right? But there's definitely several meaningful endings, one of that people with different values might pick different ones, if that makes sense.
This makes me think of, and now I'm going to sort of put my sort of cultural value at display here. This makes me think of Family Guy in the multiverse where Brian makes 9/11 not happen, and they have to sort of make it happen, and because you never know what's good and bad.
Seems like a little bit of a leap, but I'll take it.
Shakespeare to Family Guy in one sentence.
Yeah, it's basically the same thing.
Art, right?
Yeah, no. I mean, it is fun, right? It's fun playing with what ifs. And, like, what if you change the story in some dramatic way? Like, would things be perfect? No, they wouldn't be. They'd be different. And that's really what we're doing here, right? Like, the whole idea is there's kind of, like, ongoing mysteries. And when you learn the solutions to those mysteries, you can, like, tell people, and then they know, and then they'll do things that are dramatically different. But are those dramatically different things better? Like, if 9/11, this is a weird jump, but sure, if 9/11 doesn't happen, like, it'll be a very different story. It might, unfortunately, it might not be well, in that case, it'll probably be a better story, but no, we don't, you know what I mean, yeah.
We're getting into dangerous territory here. What I would like to ask you is the structure of this, because you make it sound a little bit like it's open-ended and it's sort of a sandbox experience.
Yes.
Is it cascading as well, so that if you do something, you can do branching all the way out?
Yes. Yeah, so the way the game works mechanically, and this was the brainchild of, really everyone, but the people who really spearheaded it were Eric Butler and Kristen, who are Kristen Sue, who are our two main programmers. The idea is that all characters have, like, sort of, like, a list of all the things that they know, and they also know, like, things that have happened previously. So based on when you tell them something and what has happened previously, yeah, there'll be a cascade effect. And if you tell people a bunch of things at once, the cascade might be more dramatic, right? Like, you tell Hamlet, hey, Hamlet, I'm going crazy, and you tell Gertrude that, like, hey, your husband murdered your old husband. Like, those two things might converge in a way that they wouldn't if you had just presented one and then waited a while and presented the other, right? And, like, it's interesting because there's a potential scope explosion there where we need to account for everything. So we're trying to make some smart choices of, like, how we collapse that possibility space. And one of the ways we did that is characters can become upset with you, which means they don't want to talk to you anymore. And then you have to wait a while, but they're set on a path from that point. And it helps us, like, you can't tell Gertrude, hey, your husband killed your old husband, and then she's like, I'm really upset, and then you tell Gertrude, hey, it's your birthday, and she's happy again. Like, it was an interesting, like, it's an interesting space to try to navigate, right? Because it's so open, trying to find ways to make it a cohesive, meaningful experience to the player without letting them shoot themselves in the foot accidentally. And I think we've done it, right? It took a while, and we were iterating on this game for forever, but, like, there's a really meaningful feeling to like doing this one thing and having Hamlet like want to meet you off in the path, and then like not everything causes the entire story to cascade. Some things cause small changes, and some things cause big spinning changes, and the mix between the two makes you really feel like you're interacting with a world that has some sort of like momentum in a direction, but like they're actually responding to what you're doing.
I gotta ask you this because I guess everyone has a connection to Shakespeare, stronger or less so.
Yeah.
But what's your connection and the connection of the team? Is this sort of like something that means a lot to you guys? Or?
Yeah, I mean, I was a language arts major. I'm actually a creative writing major, although I took a bunch of classes and other shit while I was in college. But for me, I've actually never been like a huge fan of Shakespeare, except Hamlet. And I think part of that was that I was in Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead as a kid, in high school. And that kind of has a similar thing going on. It's like, hey, let's show what all the characters are doing when they're not in the scenes that occur in actual Hamlet. Because that's one of the things with Elsinore, is because you can walk around the castle and be anywhere. Like, we've got the thing where, like, hey, what is Gertrude up to when Hamlet is, like, raving in his room, right? Like, we need to fill out those events and have everyone doing their own thing at all times. And filling out those sort of things and fleshing out those characters has been really meaningful, right? Like, because one thing that Shakespeare did really well, and I guess I'm kind of getting sidetracked with the question, so I'll retreat in a little bit. One of the things he did really well was he gave, like, hints of deeper characters, right? And it's been nice to, like, let players just unravel those layers. But yeah, for me, the personal connection is it was by far my favorite Shakespeare play when I read it in high school, and the basic character types and things going on in the momentum of the tragedy and like thinking about things too much and trying to optimize is very much kind of in line with the gamer mindset of like, I want to figure out like what is the best thing to do right now, and like decision paralysis, right, which is totally what Hamlet is dealing with in the original play. And approaching it from an outside perspective of someone being like, no, Hamlet, don't do these things, is a new perspective, right? It's a lot of fun. So yeah, being in Rosencrantz, Guildenstern Dead, being my favorite play, that's my personal connection. The original idea came from Katie Chironis, who's our project lead and writer. And she's one of my best friends, so if I mispronounced her last name, she'll be very upset with me, but it's possible. And she, what happened is we all ran this club called Game Creation Society, and we had a contest where the theme was Shakespeare, and she came up with this idea as part of the contest, and then we kept going like, hey, we should do this. Hey, we should do this. Then we all graduated, went our separate ways, and then we finally are doing it. And but yeah, I really wish she was here, because like it's really like, for the way that she put it, is her personal connection is she loved the story, she loved the characters, and never felt like Ophelia got like a full story, right? There's all this like glimpses into a fuller character for Ophelia, and being able to tell the story from her perspective, and allowing her to like be trapped in the loop and like try to manipulate things from the outside. Again, it's like Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead. It feels fresh, right? It's the same story from a vastly different perspective.
Very cool. You talked a lot about how this got started.
Yes.
But there's a finish line as well.
Yes.
Where are you at in the development, and sort of what are you aiming for?
I would say we are in late alpha, early beta. We are shooting for this fall for release. The one thing to note is this is a project that we are all working on in our free time. All of us have full-time jobs. So while we are very well on track for that, if one of our full-time jobs is like, no, you're crunching now, and you have to work 80 hours days, which has happened, then it might slip. But we are definitely on track for release sometime within, like, I would say the next year, right? So yeah.
And on PC or?
Yes. We are releasing on PC, Mac, and Linux, which we're developing in Unity, so we're just exporting to all those platforms and doing some extra work on top of that, because it's never as simple as just exporting to those platforms. Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much. Yeah, no, it was wonderful talking.